On this day in 1699, Captain William Kidd is imprisoned in Boston for piracy and murder. He was hanged in 1701 in London. And that, my friends, is that for this day in history.
Yay!
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 So, let's get rid of these things. All right, and we'll talk to our guest here for a Cape Cod Clam Chatter, Representative Susan Gifford. How you doing?
Susan
Williams
how
Gifford,
are
I'm
you?
sorry.
That's all right.
Nice to see you.
Susan Gifford, let's make it easy.
I realize that everybody wants to say Susan Williams Giffords and put an S at the end of Gifford instead of or in addition to Williams.
Usually I get Susan William Gifford.
Yeah.
So, like I said, let's make it easy. Susan Williams Gifford. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
I'm happy to be
How are you
here.
doing?
Very well.
This is your hour for you to tell Wareham what's going on, what kind of programs you're running and stuff like that. And we have some questions for you as well.
Very good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first? Where you're from? I think you were elected in 2002.
That's correct.
So
That's
where did you grow up and how did you get involved in politics?
Well, I'm a Michigander by birth.
Right.
Yes, born and raised in Michigan, and ended up out here in Massachusetts through a very long, convoluted path, but moved to Wareham full-time in 1996. And I had spent some time here in the summers prior to moving here full-time, and got to know some people, and kind of decided this is where I wanted to make my home, so I did. And,
So you were looking for a pretty town.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the place that I wanted to be, and I chose Wareham. And I come from a family that always took their civic responsibility of voting very seriously, although no one in my family was ever really politically active. So politics was not something that I had ever kind of grown up thinking, oh, someday I want to.
So I'm guessing from then that you must have been sitting around being frustrated by somebody else's politics.
You're absolutely right. Very perceptive. I happen to know a lot of people in the community, and a lot of them were business owners. And what I had been hearing was that Wareham wasn't exactly business friendly as far as the process if you wanted to start a business here or grow your business here. The permitting process was convoluted. People, one department didn't seem to know what another was doing. And sitting around reading the Wareham Courier one evening with a friend, and he pointed out to me that, oh, look, tomorrow's the last day to take out nomination papers for Board of Selectmen. Why don't you run? And the rest, as they say, is history. So that was 1999 when I was elected to the Board of Selectmen, and I served term 2000.
And then how did you get talked into so quickly into running for state rep?
Well, there at the time, in the year 2000, there was some ongoing political unrest. There was, I'm sure it's no secret that I'm one of the few Republicans in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, let alone up on Beacon Hill. There are 19 of us right now in the House and the Senate, but I was contacted in 2000 by Governor Cellucci's office. And at the time, the Republican Party was looking to grow their farm team, so to speak. So when they learned of my, that's kind of how it works.
You got to do it.
And when they learned of my success in my run for the Board of Selectmen, and that not only did I win a seat, but I topped the ballot on two long-time resident, long-term incumbents.
Right.
So Governor Cellucci asked me to come up to the State House, and I met with him, and he asked me if I would consider running for state representative. Now, at that time, the district was very different. We were not through with the redistricting process, which we're coming up again here very, very soon.
How often is it done?
Every 10 years, yes, based on the census.
Yeah. So far.
And at the time, the district was all of Wareham. It was 2 precincts in Carver, 2 precincts in Bourne, and I want to say 3 perhaps in Sandwich, which went all the way down to Sandy Neck. Now, if you know, that's quite a drive from Wareham down to Sandy Neck in Sandwich. So, and there was an incumbent in the seat, a lady by the name of Ruth Provost, and I did decide that I was going to challenge her and give her a run, and I was unsuccessful, but I came away with 43% of the vote, and for basically a political newbie, that was a pretty good showing.
Right.
And I was asked at that time, would I please consider giving it a go again in 2002, and I had made the decision at that time, yes, that's what I was going to do.
Good, good. Well, now the thing is, we have to. There's the proverbial 500-pound elephant in the. We usually don't talk a lot of politics on the show, as you probably know, but. Given your position and what's going on in the world, we probably should talk about some of that stuff instead of dancing around it. So, some of the things that I would like. Well, let's talk about one at a time. One of the things that I'm concerned with, and you are on the Joint Committee for Natural Resources. I forget the natural
Environment,
resources.
Natural Resources, and Agriculture.
Right. And so you would be the person to talk to about this. And my concern is right now with the oil in the Gulf, that at some point or another the globs are going to make their way around the Isthmus of Florida, and they are going to eventually come up the coast. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's going to be hitting, Cape Cod and our own coastal waters here. Are we about to sit by and pretend that it's not going to happen and pretend that we're surprised by it, or is there any kind of plan already in place? Are people preparing for this already?
Unfortunately, well, while I will preface my remarks by saying I'm not privy to all of the information, I have not heard the governor come out and make any sort of statement, nor have I been contacted by our House and Senate chairs of that committee that they're working to put an action plan in place.
So we're going to pretend that we're blindsided.
Well, I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. Now the House is in formal session tomorrow, so there'll be an opportunity to ask some questions and find out what the plan is. Are we going to be readying a task force for this? And hopefully we will be ready, because I do agree there's going to be some outfall,
Backlash,
if you will, yes, from the Gulf spill up on our pristine beaches. I think one thing will be the questions about what condition will the oil be in when it gets here. Will it be the nasty, tarry mess that they're experiencing right now, or will it be to a point where once it gets here, it won't be a difficult task to clean up? I don't know the answers to those questions.
I'm not sure anybody does, but
right.
But
So,
why pretend? Why pretend that it isn't going to be some sort of emergency? I mean, if it's just colorful slicks on the water, that means it's evaporating. If it comes up in the globs that it's going around and ruining the Gulf of Mexico with, we're going to be in some trouble.
yes.
Now, one of the things that's happening down there is government agencies as well as BP are saying, stay away from it, don't touch it. We don't want any, we want experts taking care of it. And in the meantime, the beaches are suffering, and there's no experts on the beaches. They're just like, well, how long do you think you're going to wait? And what I'm asking / suggesting is that if you're in a position to make any kind of suggestion, it seems to me that you want to get, since there are citizens that want to be involved and they want to clean it up, there should be immediately available ways and tools for citizens to be involved. If it does come up in clumps and it needs to be picked up and disposed of, we should probably be ready for that, and we should have an army of citizens ready to do it, because once it hits, it's not going to be pretty, especially with all of the the peat and all the swampland that we have that reaches into the ocean. I mean, beaches are pretty easy to clean because it's just sitting on the sand. You throw some of the sand away with it, but
But it's the marshlands.
the marshes are
and-
not
yes.
going to be easy to clean at all. So now, how do these joint committees work? Who gets to call the meetings? Is it only the chairman?
It's the chairs, but again, the House chairman.
You can tickle the guy.
Absolutely,
who's the chair, right?
and the House chairman happens to be William Strauss from Mattapoisett, and I've known Bill for many years, and I have an excellent working relationship with him, and have absolutely every intention of tapping him on the shoulder tomorrow and say, hey, Bill, what's the plan here? Are we going to be having a meeting? Because I agree with you. It's better to be safe than sorry, and be ready.
Right.
And
there's just no excuse for this.
Right.
None whatsoever to be surprised by it.
I think we have the tools that we're going to need in regard to our coastal communities after the Bouchard oil spill in 2003. Our coastal communities were awarded the hazardous material cleanup trailers. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Wareham has one, Mattapoisett has one. Many of the beach communities have one, and they come complete with containment equipment, oil absorbing, booms. Tools and apparatus needed to clean beaches. So we do have an upper hand in that regard. But again, manpower is going to be key.
Are those manned? I mean,
no, the trailers are not.
Right,
no,
so there's nobody to command them at this point.
Well, it usually falls under the harbor masters to take care. They're the ones who are in charge of our waterways. So the harbor masters are technically the first responders when it comes to those particular issues. Although I do believe that our police chiefs are also involved as well, because in a lot of coastal communities, the harbor masters fall under the purview of the police department.
Okay. Let's see. So anything else that you'd like to mention about that before we move on?
Well, I mean, again, you've made a great point, and quite frankly, I am a little bit surprised that we haven't been talking about this, because I do agree it's inevitable. It's coming. We just don't know what form it's in, but we shouldn't be sitting around waiting for the oil to start moving up our eastern seaboard.
It's only going to cost us more if we pretend that it's not happening.
I agree.
Like most problems. So I got a couple of other things that I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about one of the things that are near and dear to you. But let's talk about this next, and that's rail service. You were on a committee for rail service a couple of years ago down here. I don't know if you still are. What's the status?
The commission is not active per se. I mean, we are still there. The last that we were involved in was a series of public meetings in the town of Wareham, again in conjunction with Representative Strauss from Mattapoisett and Senator Pacheco, to try to figure out where the best location for a train station or the depot would be. And we were able to gather some information and make some recommendations. But as I'm sure everybody is aware, and this is no secret, that New Bedford and Fall River have kind of come in and stolen our thunder. And the governor had made some campaign promises to the folks in that area that they're basically holding his feet to the fire and trying to move their project along, even though that project now is well past $1 billion in estimated cost. Some say that it's even upwards of $2 billion. And our project here, which our last estimates for were approximately $50 million. We could have an active rail service feeder going from
Why can't
Wareham
it be
to
both?
Middleborough.
I mean, New Bedford and Fall River are not this part of 195.
Money. It's money. And right now, unless money has come from the federal stimulus program, there's very little money available for anything other than emergency repair projects, and most of which is going to our bridges. We have the accelerated bridge program that's going on. And fortunately, we have the Cohasset Narrows Bridge, which is on that list. That's the bridge that's between Wareham and Bourne. And that project is moving forward.
That's called the Cohasset Narrows.
Cohasset Narrows.
I didn't know it had a name.
Yes. And
I just call it the bridge.
So it's really difficult right now. I mean, we could sit here and argue that, our project at a paltry $50 million should get priority. And of course, we believe that it should.
Right.
But when you've got...
Megabucks winner could pay for that.
When you have a situation where, again, the governor made promises during his campaign to the people of Fall River and New Bedford to move that project forward. So other projects are taking a back seat to that. And hopefully we're not stopping our efforts. It's just that this is kind of a little bump in the road, and we're going to keep pushing forward. And right now we do have a proposal from Mr. John Kennedy from Cape Coastal Railway. He's put a proposal forward to operate sort of a feeder service from Buzzards Bay through Wareham and to Lakeville, Middleborough.
What do you think the chances of that?
Well, I think part of the issue is with the state. My opinion and my view is that the state wants to control everything. And Mr. Kennedy is a private enterprise. So I think a lot depends on the support and backing from Senate President Therese Murray. And I have recently spoken with Mr. Kennedy and his organization, and they've been working with the Senate President's office. There's been no firm commitment on it at this point in time, but again, it's a matter of keep moving the matter forward.
The state wants to maintain control of everything, and yet at the same time, the state is in this rush to get everything privatized. Now, how does one justify that?
If you can give me the answer to that question, then
how do you get this
wisdom.
nonsense to stop? I mean, you must be frustrated by this all the time. I'm sure it's not just you. I'm sure the Democrats are just as frustrated. Each of you. There's so much nonsense that goes on at the state level where there are laws or rules that counter each other all the time. I'm sure the last thing you need is another committee, but isn't there some way to find and ferret out all of these rules that counter each other? I mean, how can you possibly run something when you've got rules that are saying you have to do this, and then someone else is able to dig up a rule that says no, you're not allowed to do that? I mean, you can't say we want to privatize everything, which I don't think is really a good idea anyway. But nonetheless, it is the direction that the government is going in. So you can't say let's privatize everything and still be in charge of everything, or can you? And if you can, then how do you reconcile the two? Somebody's going to be in charge. Here's what my big complaint is. We actually talked about this on the phone last year, I think it was, and that is when you have state contractors who are wasting money, not doing things that they ought to do. And back to, if you want to do a little bit of governor bashing, before taxes were raised and tax it all devolve became a popular statement. He had said, I want all of the department heads to make sure that all of the, they've gone through all of their budgets and they've cut as much as they can before I allow any kind of tax increase. Now the thing is that I think you don't really find that much waste in the government itself. The government, moves along, and if there's somebody cheating or doing something wrong, it gets found out because there's so many checks and balances. But when it comes to contractors, they hand that department a bill, and that department did not go through. I mean, no one went through their private contractors who they're in charge of, like the Executive Office of Elderly Affairs, for example. Nobody went through that and said, where is the money being wasted here? They don't do that. They just say it's not being wasted up at the upper level where we maintain and hire those contractors. But no one goes into what the bills are that the contractors hand us. Why is that? Why can't we go through those contractors and say, you're wasting money. We want you to stop doing it that way.
Well,
and that's where those non-reconciled rules come from.
Paul, there is a committee already, a joint committee on state administration and regulatory oversight. Now, I'm not a member of that committee. I haven't been since I've been state representative. I don't know everything that they do, but it would seem to me that based on the title of that committee, State Administration and Regulatory Oversight, that they would be the ones who would be charged with taking a look into what you just described. And what I think a big part of the waste is duplication of services. You've got people in so many agencies, state agencies, who are doing the same things, and that's a huge waste of money.
That would certainly
so, you know, perhaps looking into the responsibilities of that committee might be worthwhile.
Now, in the position that you're in, are you able to do any ass kicking? I mean, you know, not just you, obviously, but you know, your other friends that are
ask questions.
Whether they're on the committee or not, whether they're on the committee or not, are you able to? I mean, you and the people that you associate with.
Absolutely.
Is there any way that they can be moved along? You know,
well, sure.
light a fire, as it were.
We can ask and find out. You know, what's going on, and you know, if it comes down to a committee should be doing something that they're not, where do you go from there? Well, you know, in regard to a joint committee, you'd have to go to the Speaker of the House and the Senate President and, you know, contact them and ask for an inquiry through their offices.
Because without them doing their job, almost everything ends up being really a waste of time.
Correct.
Duplication of effort, things don't get done, things get done too much, et cetera.
And there's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to unemployment, because that's always fun. What's your take on the extensions and that kind of stuff, and what is the state's role in unemployment? I know it's important at the beginning, the first 12 weeks, I guess, of unemployment. What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, first of all, the issue pending right now is a federal extension.
Right.
It's
right.
My office has been contacted by people who said, you know, what's happening. It's out of state control.
Right.
It's our U.S. senators and our Congress people who have to make the decision whether or not they're going to further extend benefits. Now, going off on one tangent, that there is a school of thought that I have to kind of take some stock in, and that is if you keep extending unemployment benefits for people, then there's less and less incentive for them to pound the pavement and go out and look for work. That being said, I understand that there are people who are really hurting, and that Massachusetts has taken an incredible hit in this economic downturn. We've lost a lot of jobs, but I can't blame everything on the economy. I think there are things that we have to blame ourselves for. Number one, unemployment insurance rates in the Commonwealth are very high. Unfriendly to businesses, again, who want to expand here, grow here, come here. The second thing that we're dealing with is our mandatory health care law. And I will say, I was on the Healthcare Financing Committee. I worked on that bill. I voted for the bill. I think we needed to have some type of insurance, mandated insurance in the Commonwealth. We have many, many more people insured now than we did 3-4 years ago. But there are some bugs in the program, and one of those huge issues is that we're not controlling costs, and we are not watching what it's doing to our small businesses. The insurers in the Commonwealth are increasing the rates for premiums for our small businesses. Those small companies that have to provide the insurance for their employees or pay the $295 or $96 a year penalty, if you will, per employee if they opt not to provide that insurance. Now, there is a proposal by the Senate President, and unfortunately, I think people are aware that there's a little bit of a power struggle going on in Beacon Hill. The governor feels he's the most important. The Senate President feels she's the most important. Speaker of the House feels he's most important. So you've got an issue where the Speaker of the House wants to advance his expanded gaming proposal. The Senate President was not feeling the love, so to speak. She put out her health plan, which I understand contained some provisions to help with small businesses in their insurance premiums. And the Speaker of the House wasn't feeling the love. So you've got the two of them now who are stalemated on they're kind of holding up each other's bills, and they're waiting to see who's going to blink first. So,
Let's not think about the needs of the people. Let's just think about our own egos.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So there's a lot going on with the unemployment issue. It's not just the economic downturn. There's also other factors involved.
I hear what you're saying, but the thing is that I hope that you are putting great weight on the economic downturn, because
absolutely.
One of the things that seems to be happening is that you've got all the proprietary trading that's going on with commercial banks. So in essence, what's happening is we and I know this isn't state level stuff, but this is what's happening, and it's happening in the state, and you are on that committee. And the thing is that where we have banks that are doing proprietary trading, making tons of money, hand over fist every day. They're getting money from the Fed for 0% interest rate. They're lending it out at 4%, sometimes 5%. Now, I had a loan 4 years prior to crash at 4.8%, and they're still loaning it out at that, and pretending that it's some sort of historic low. It's like, I got it that far ago, and you're still only at 4. You haven't done anything. You haven't changed anything, and you're expecting a different financial outcome. Now, what's the definition of crazy? Anyway, but not only they're like I say, they're doing proprietary trading, so it's only trading amongst themselves, so that only the banks themselves makes money. They don't pass it on to their customers, and then on top of that, what are they investing in? They're investing in treasury notes. So that's about 4%. So really, it's almost like not only they're getting it for 0%, they're forcing us to pay them we're writing checks to them to lend money. And the thing is that they're not lending the money out. So businesses aren't getting any money to expand. And so really anything that's an economic recovery is just because we just poured a bunch of money in. When that money's gone, that economic recovery is going to be gone. Some of the further proof of that is the fact that Europe's downturn is they're blaming their current downturn on the fact that our recovery has slowed down. Well, of course our recovery slowed down. We're running out of the money that we handed out.
Right.
Our businesses are still not doing any better than they were in 2008. It's still just as bad as it was then. Somebody has to put a leash on this thing. And I know that particular thing is a federal thing, but is there anything that can be done at the state level as far as banking rules are concerned?
Well, it's hard when you're dealing with state as opposed to federal. I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, I'm no expert in, I'm a member of the Financial Services Committee, but primarily because of my background in insurance. So financial services is the combination of insurance and banks and banking committees that were joined a couple of sessions ago. But just to tell you a little bit, when you're dealing with a federal regulation and a state regulation, you have to watch for who's got a majority of the control. And a good example of that would be our oil spill legislation that we passed after the Bouchard spill. Now, I know I'm getting way off the tangent here, but just to explain to you, we passed tougher laws in Massachusetts than what the federal government said they required.
Right.
Well, guess what? The federal government challenged Massachusetts. They sued us and tried to make us change our law. And basically this had to do with requiring pilots on barges of certain size and barrel capacity. So it's really difficult when you're talking in terms of a federal regulation. If a federal regulation is taking precedent over a particular aspect of lending, then there's very little that the state can do to step in, other than perhaps. I can't even think of an easy example.
Are all banks, like credit unions, what are some of the other ones? There's credit unions, there's just commercial banking. There's several different kinds of bankings. Does the state have any control over any of those?
Well,
Or is
I
it
think
all
if
federal?
it's, yeah, if it's a homegrown Massachusetts company, I would believe that, yeah, that the state would have the first say over, again, though,
They're not huge
anyone
enough
who
to-
wants to lend money, I mean, there are federal rules that do apply, but again, whose rules take precedent?
Right.
And I don't know all the answers
Yeah.
to that, but again, I would think that if it was a local company,
Uh-huh.
doing business in Massachusetts, from Massachusetts.
You can have some kind of incentive. Oh, yeah, okay. There's some kind of incentive that you could give them, I assume, on a state
Well,
level.
I know that there are issues where we've tried to initiate some tax breaks and encouraging lenders to, give the money out to our small businesses. That legislation, though, I mean, in Massachusetts, when you mention tax breaks,
Right.
many of my colleagues are like,
Right, because we haven't got any
don't
money
take our
anyway.
tax
so-
money.
Right.
And corporations are an easy target.
Yeah.
They're the faceless, people writing the checks.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the taxpayer, you and I.
Right, right. Well, we have to take a quick weather break, and we'll be right back with
All right.
Representative Susan Gifford. All right, so we're here talking with Representative Susan Gifford here in our next installment of Cape Cod Clam Chatter.
Great
So,
name.
Yeah. Let's see. One of the things that we want to talk about was 40B. I know that that's one of your. I think my mic is off. Yes, I know that that's one of your pet projects, or maybe pet
Yes.
peeves. I'm not sure which.
Both.
Well, tell us. Here, my take on it is, why is it not considered housing stock when it comes to 40? Why is it? It meaning what do you call it?
Mobile
homes and things.
Oh, this
What-
is.
how- it's almost like that law was written just to piss off Wareham.
I know, it seems like
You know?
that. All right, okay. How much time do we have? Because
Well,
I got a lot,
we got
lot to
almost-
talk about
almost a half an hour,
on the
so
40B
feel
issue
free.
here.
25 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah, we'll go over.
I don't think I have 45
we'll go over
minutes.
for you.
First of all, since I was elected, one of the first bills that I filed in January of 2003, that was the start of my first session as state representative, was a bill that sought to change the definition of affordable housing under Chapter 40B to include manufactured and mobile homes. And of course, in-law apartments, group homes, there are some other things too. It wasn't just mobile and manufactured homes. But I mean, that's been since 2003. And it's been a source of irritation and frustration, and I'll get into some more detail on it. But this legislative session alone, and we're talking 2009, 2010, because each session is 2 years. This session, there were 207 bills filed in the House and Senate that sought changes to the Chapter 40B law. 207. Would you like to know how many have come out of committee and have been placed on the
If
calendar?
I guessed
for
zero,
action?
would it be anywhere near the number?
I can't say for sure that it's zero, but I know there's nothing on the current House
So
calendar
if there's
for
that
this.
many, and there's that many behind it, what is stopping it?
It is the urban housing coalitions. They are very, very powerful lobby, and they see any changes to Chapter 40B as weakening the law, and they won't stand for it. And
It's an
you might
illogical
ask,
law.
You might ask, why would these urban coalitions, from Boston, Springfield, Lowell, Lawrence, Worcester, and we're talking they're big cities in the Commonwealth, these housing groups, they're the ones who are fighting Chapter 40B reform tooth and nail. Why would they care what we want to do here in Wareham.
One might ask that.
There aren't a heck of a lot of mobile homes in Boston. I know there was one park in Roxbury or West Roxbury. I don't even know if it's still there or not anymore. Mm-hmm. Why would they care? Again, it's seen as weakening the law.
But weakening in what way? What is it weakening that bothers them?
Well, if you go look online to like the Citizens Housing Coalition and you look at the incredible list of organizations that are all part of that organization, again, they're just a huge housing lobby. And there's no logic to it. That's, let us do what's right for our town.
It's like
it's
the
not
law-
going to affect you. You know, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
The other problem is when 40B was written, and now I think it was, 1969 or something like that. The intent was good. But again, it came out of the need for urban housing, low-income urban housing. And somehow, when they set up the criteria as to how they were going to calculate what is classified as affordable housing,
right,
in terms of income and cost, Wareham got lumped in with Boston, which also makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So we've also tried to get a separation, get Wareham into the statistics of the South Coast area, not Boston.
And who's in charge of that? How's that happen?
Department of Housing.
You sound frustrated.
Department of Housing and Community Development. That's basically where 40B falls under. So it's been, and I'm not just talking either about changing the definition of affordable, which would incredibly help us, and it would also help my town of Carver. Carver also has a huge number of mobile and manufactured homes. In fact, a community called South Meadow Village in Carver has upward of 600 units in that one single park.
Wow. And
I think Wareham, we had probably pretty close to 1,100. I think it was something like 1,081 last time I took a look at the list. But, and here's another thing too that's really frustrating. Back in 2004, the Joint Committee on Housing put out a comprehensive housing reform bill that we were actually able to negotiate an amendment to that legislation that would have allowed a community to count 50% of mobile and manufactured homes. Now, Paul, this was a huge accomplishment. This was a huge accomplishment.
It makes no sense. I mean, it's good. It is a huge, but it still makes no sense.
We were elated because it was going to put Wareham over the 10%, affordable housing quota that they needed in order to fend off any more 40B projects, and Carver would have been close, but they still had a ways to go. We got it through the House. The comprehensive legislation passed by a vote. I think it was like 153-1, and a representative from the Boston delegation was the one who voted no. And then the Senate never took up the bill, and it died. And since 2004, there has not been a significant movement on Chapter 40B reform, in spite of many efforts. Again, 207 bills. And we're talking about bills
That's incredible.
that seek to strengthen zoning laws for a community, trying to give communities some more tools that they can use to try to stop 40B projects, or at least make them a little more palatable. Include more affordable units. See, right now we're at a point where it's like what's half of one. half of one is a half. What's half of a half? You never get to zero.
Right. That's what I was going to mention.
Keeps perpetuating
Right.
the problem because you're adding, in a 40B project, you're adding more housing units and not a great enough percentage
Right.
of
Every time you
affordable
start
units.
building new houses, you've got to add to that number.
Right. So
Which that's what I'm talking about. Is it's not logical. I mean, there is, and the thing is that we go to town meeting after town meeting, and we hear these developers get up and say how it's going to get us over the 40B limit. It's like there's no such thing. You cannot get above the 40B limit.
Not under the
with the way the
current
law is
formula.
written now. Because no
Exactly.
matter what happens, if you put in another 2 houses, you still have to add a 10% of the housing stock.
Exactly.
So it just makes no sense whatsoever. So what do you think is the future of this? I mean,
Well,
you can't stop fighting for it. It's too good to give
all right,
up on. But
this is what I'm telling people now. Again, we're approaching the end of the legislative session. July 31st marks the end of what's called formal sessions, which means after July 31st,
July 30th, okay.
if there's anything, basically no business is going to get done because unless it's non-controversial and does not require a roll call vote. Because after July 31st, I don't think that it may have happened before my time, but to bring the House and the Senate back in for a formal session for a roll call vote after the end of the session, it's rare if it's ever happened. So what I'm telling people is there is a ballot initiative coming up this November which seeks a repeal of Chapter 40B, a total repeal.
Wow.
And I'm telling people,
It's kind of like sticking to those
well,
coalitions.
exactly.
But it's like, hey, you don't want to play ball.
and that's been it. There's been no willingness, no flexibility.
Yeah.
And, it's almost kind of the same thing as the sales tax issue, which
Well-
there's also a ballot question to repeal the sales tax,
Oh, really?
too.
That's going to happen.
Well, yeah, and it's
Not
going
now-
to
not in our
create
lifetime.
some big disasters if it did. But I'm just trying to tell people to get involved in that issue. I mean, I don't know. I should have probably had the website. I know there is a website for the group that's pushing the ballot question, as there is one for the huge group that's fighting the ballot question.
Can you explain to the folks at home why it's so important? I mean, I've been involved in different reasons in different aspects of the 40B, but maybe you could do a better job than I can explaining to the folks at home why 40B is so important to them and why really if the housing coalitions don't want to play ball, repealing is probably our best friend.
And then
Now,
we could start over.
I know that exactly, and I know the complaint is. I'm sure the complaint will be. It's certainly on any kind of television ads or whatever. If it gets to that kind of thing, will be that it's going to allow for snob zoning again, which is not necessarily true. It's not.
No.
It doesn't mean it will, but it also doesn't mean it won't. There is the possibility of it occurring, but that's home rule. That's how you zone your town is up to the people in the town. It should be up to the people in the town.
And removing the constraints and the ramifications of Chapter 40B will allow a community to move forward with their own ideas, with
and
their
not have their
own-
arms twisted by developers who
Exactly.
come into a community and don't care what the community looks like. Have you seen those houses down there that down on Main?
Yes.
It looks like old England in the company store.
Wareham
company-
is a
not company
prime
store.
target too, and this is another thing too where I cannot understand why some of these housing coalitions are so adamant about what 40B is, but the Wareham is a prime target. We have infrastructure, we have water, we have sewer. That's what developers are looking for. We have
Stuff they're not gonna have to
available
spend on.
property.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't want to go to other rural towns where they need well water, they need septic. That's too much money. They're not going to make enough profit on those particular lands.
Right.
So, and mentioning infrastructure, another one of the bills that I co-sponsored was legislation that if you could say that a proposed 40B project was going to put an undue strain on a community's water or sewer infrastructure, that would be a basis to deny it.
Right.
And again, that was another one that it just makes sense.
Wash down the-
It just makes sense.
Flush down the toilet, as it were. Flush down the sewer.
Great pun. But yes, exactly. It just defies logic.
Yeah, it really makes me angry. I kind of stopped you or sidetracked you. Can you explain to the people why it matters to them? What?
Again, it's hard. It's hard to describe.
I know. That's, I guess I'm looking for help because it's really important.
I wish.
And a lot of people don't really understand it.
It's the only thing I can see is that they are so proud of the 40B law
passed.
that they're protecting their low income residents. They're making sure that everybody has a place to live. Don't get me wrong, I am all for it. I know we need affordable housing in all three of the communities that I represent. But 40B is not the way to go about it. And these people have not really
certainly not
offered,
the way it's written now.
No, they have not offered any viable explanation that I am aware of to why they won't allow some modification somewhere, which certainly aren't going to affect them in the large urban areas.
Right.
So I wish I had the magic wand where I could say, oh, this is exactly the reason why. But again, I'm sure you'll start seeing the commercials hit the TV from both sides of the argument, the groups that are trying to thwart the ballot question and those who are supporting the ballot
And now, when
question.
did you say that was going to occur?
It's on November 2nd. It'll be on the ballot.
Wow. Wow, so we're looking. There's going to be quite a bit political row.
I do believe
probably
so.
coming
Yeah.
this summer, the end of the summer.
It's going to be an interesting ballot. November. There'll be a lot of things on it, especially if the sales tax repeal gets on there too.
Right.
So.
Oh, tell us who's behind that. What's happening
Again,
with that?
it's a citizens group. I don't know exactly. If you're not aware, the Republican caucus during our budget deliberations, we tried to repeal the increase, at least get it back down to the 6%. And the majority party used the political maneuvering that they normally do. They sent it to a study, which basically means they killed it. Anything that is designated as going to a study is dead. Same thing with the
Isn't that how it works
tax on the alcohol tax.
With town meeting too?
Well,
If it's a further study, it's
I don't
dead.
want to. Usually people bring it up again after that. But the same thing with the tax on the alcohol tax. You know that alcohol essentially is taxed from the time that they start the process to manufacture it to the time that it shows up on the store shelves. Well, Massachusetts just instituted a 6.5% tax on alcohol, which is already taxed every step of the way.
6.5% tax on the retail.
Correct.
Of the
You never have to pay tax. Exactly. Yeah. If you went into a packy and you bought a six pack of your favorite malt beverage and it cost you $6, you paid $6.
Right.
Now you pay $6 plus a 6.25% sales tax on that. So we tried to repeal that.
I can understand why. I can understand why you'd want to go after that. I mean, it was saying wasn't there a bill? I don't know whether it was Massachusetts or somewhere else where they wanted to be taxing candy. And,
that's Massachusetts, and
that's
soda.
Yeah, candy and soda, right. But I can understand that at least there's some logic behind that in that you don't need to have candy and you don't need to have soda and you don't need to have alcohol. That doesn't mitigate the fact that everybody wants those things.
Yeah.
It's just they're not needs. They're not,
again,
they're not toilet paper and
alcohol
hamburger.
is already taxed, and I
Right.
don't know what the actual percentage is from the product itself to all of the cumulative taxes that are placed on it, but it's getting close there to almost 50-50. I want to say it's like 40% of what you pay for an alcoholic beverage product in retail is a form of a tax from some point in time.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, it's probably from the time that they started taxing it up
Yeah.
to now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure probably no taxes have been repealed on it at any particular point.
Not that I'm
because
aware
who
of.
wants to either? If you're a manufacturer, you want to maintain your kingdom by making it expensive for other people to get into the business. So taxes kind of is their friend in a way. So. So how much time do we have? 8 minutes. Okay. So we've got 8 minutes left. Is there anything that, because I have one other sort of a kind of like an educational question that you might be able to answer, but before we do that, I want to make sure that you have said everything that you want to make sure that you want your constituents to know about.
If I think of something pops into my mind, I'll try and interrupt you with it there before we end.
You can give us a little Sesame Street moment here. You're on the House steering
policy and scheduling.
Right. It's too long for me to remember.
I know.
Steering policy and scheduling. How does that work exactly? In Massachusetts, because it's a Commonwealth, any citizen can write a proposal for a law and bring it to their legislator. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is that connected to the steering committee?
When a bill gets to that committee, it's pretty much already been through most of the process, which means that it's the first thing that happens is that the bill, when it's filed, it goes to rules. And rules looks at the bill and they see what it pertains to. If it has to do with, let's just say, a gun law, perhaps, it will go to judiciary. Can you say that right? And then judiciary will basically guide that bill through the public hearing process. They'll make a decision, whether or not they're going to vote favorable on that bill or vote ought not to pass or send it to a study to kill it.
Right.
And then when it goes to steering policy and scheduling, it's been through all of the process and it's getting ready to get put on the House calendar to be brought to the floor at the call of Mr. Speaker, who basically runs the show and decides which bills.
All right, so that committee, so you must not meet that often then?
No, we don't. We don't. A lot on that committee is done by email, yes.
Okay.
And that's,
all right, so then
fortunately, because I'm on 5 committees, so if I've got one that's not a whole
So then back to our Sesame Street moment, then therefore, what is the process if someone is interested in writing a bill? What would they do?
Again, the first thing is to contact your state rep or your senator. And
which would be you.
Yeah, well, the state rep, yes, and Senator Pacheco for those of you in Wareham and Carver.
Is there a reason to go to one versus the other?
No,
or it's either
no,
one?
just your preference.
Okay.
And
then you guys have to sponsor whether you like the bill or not.
Well,
is that the case? That's what I've heard.
I can tell you that there is something called by request. If a person decides that they want to file a bill, and let's say that maybe there might be legal questions to it or ethical questions to it, yeah, we need to file it for you. I mean, as a constituent, that's what I'm there for, is to file that bill for you. But if the bill filing is done by request, that means that the rep or the senator is not necessarily wholeheartedly, in support of that legislation, that we're fulfilling a, constituent requirement and moving that.
So do you get it
behalf.
a lot? The reason I ask is because you don't. Okay, because I have lots of discussions with lots of people, and they're all, a lot of people say, well, I'd love to just do this, and I say to them, all you have to do is just contact your
Absolutely,
rep
absolutely. I mean, and if you have an idea or a question. What we would do then is that we would take that idea and approach our House counsel and inquire with House counsel. They're the legal people. They know if something's legal or ethical and if it can be filed. If it pertains to an existing law, what is the law? What section does it need to be, what section of the Mass General Law are you seeking to amend? So yeah, there's lots of ways we can get answers to questions. So anybody that has any idea of something they'd like to see changed or done, yeah, absolutely, just contact me.
Okay. All right. Well, so we're down to 3 minutes, so I guess that we're pretty much done. Again, anything else that you want to?
Oh, one thing I did want to mention.
See that? I knew it.
Yeah, well, just tourism, arts, and cultural development.
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I know
you're doing some stuff from the.
Yeah, we are. This is a great committee, and I'm the ranking Republican member on the committee this session, which I'm absolutely thrilled with. And right now what we have going on is the 1,000 Great Places in Massachusetts. Right. And I was chosen to serve on that commission. And we should be getting together here very shortly to vote on the nominations. I think the nomination period closed, I think April 15th or something. I wish I'd known about it. And well, I tried to make it was in the papers, and I tried to get the word out for people. You know, come on, please vote. Let's get our local places.
From now
I can't nominate. I can vote.
No, I know, but when you have announcements like that,
oh, put it on the Gumbo
show.
My bad.
We'll
Absolutely, I will from now on, Paul.
We do morning announcements every day. So.
Okay, all right, I'll take you up on that. But that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll be fun.
It is. It's a great.
I used to own that URL, you know, mass tourism, and then I thought I just don't have time to do it, so I let it go because
wow,
I should have sold it.
yeah. But
oh really? Wow, we are done.
All right,
we've got 90 seconds to go. Representative Gifford, thank you very much.
It was
coming.
a pleasure. I hope you have me back again sometime.
Yes,
thank
please,
you,
please
everybody.
Anytime. So I guess that's it. Thank you for watching YourDailyGumbo.tv. You can watch us tonight at 8 o'clock streaming on YourDailyGumbo.tv. Clever enough. Take care of the people you love the people you take care of, and we will hopefully see you tomorrow. Have a good day.
Have a nice day.